So that's all. You may even get a little thing up at the top of your screen. You can just hit OK, and that will remove it from your screen. Welcome, everybody. Again, great to have you guys. I know this is a big topic of conversation within the real estate world. I know there's a little bit of anxiety, but I promise you we're going to cover everything that we can possibly cover to make sure you feel comfortable on the RealTrac side of all of these changes. Now, I am going to kind of preface this that goes along with that is I'm happy to answer any questions and walk you through any changes that are taking place within RealTracs. But what I don't really kind of want this to come and turn into is a kind of a big forum, big conversation of things that take place outside of RealTracs, like what are all these new forms going to be? What do I talk about to my buyers, to my sellers? That's all outside of RealTracs, and I can't even really help you with that. So we're going to talk about what's going on in RealTracs. The good news is your guys, you've got great brokers. There's a reason you joined your different brokerages. They are going to be able to help you, walk you through these new changes. They're going to be able to tell you things, how they recommend you talk to your clients, all of that good stuff. So they're going to be able to walk you through all of these new changes with you. I'm going to be able to walk you through what is happening and what is changing inside of RealTracs. Now, we got quite a few of us in today's group, which is awesome. I'm so excited to see that. But with that being said, everyone can start talking over each other and it's hard to hear. So if you happen to have a question, please drop it in the chat box. Drop that along with your email. And at the end, we'll go through and make sure we get any questions answered. So with that little caveat, with a little spiel, let's all settle in and talk about what's happening within RealTracs, what some of these changes that have already taken place and some that is still to come. Now, I'm going to be sharing my screen with you guys because we will be looking at a few things on the RealTrac side of it. Not too much kind of it. So if you do just want to kind of sit back and watch, feel free. But I am going to make sure you know what I'm talking about, what I'm looking at all times. All right. So what we got going on, the very first thing I want to talk to you guys about, and I want to hit it to y'all first while you still have the most attention going on, is concessions is not replacing compensation. They are not the same. Concessions and compensation, they are two separate things. Now, I know it can be a little confusing because you're hearing all of this, oh, compensation is going away, and then all of a sudden you're hearing things about concessions are coming. Guys, concessions, they've been part of your business since the beginning of time. According to the NAR settlement, we are removing all fields related to compensation on August 17th. So on August 17th, the compensation field will be removed from the MLS. Good news is you still have 2 months before that date comes. So on August 17th, all the compensation fields will be removed on any MLS, not just our MLS, but any MLS that's affiliated with NAR. So the very large majority of MLSs will remove compensation from their MLS site. Now, when we say we're removing it, we're not just saying we're removing the field. There will be no talking about compensation within the MLS. So that means no writing out compensation in the remarks, even private remarks. Don't try to get too creative and slide it into maybe your direction field. Or if you want to spend one Saturday mowing a big 3%, 2.5% in the yard of your listing, I applaud you for your dedication and your incredible mowing skills. That would be a fun picture, but don't post that picture on the MLS. So no communication about compensation will be on the MLS. And guys, we're going to be pretty strict, pretty serious about that. This is given to us by the DOJ. So we're going to be pretty tough. We're going to be watching this. So now that we know that, August 17th, all compensation will be removed. And you're like, okay, you just said concessions is not replacing compensation. So let's talk about concessions and what I can do with it. So concessions, it's again, like guys, you've been doing this If your seller wants to offer closing costs to the buyer, concessions is going to be, I want you to think of concessions as a marketing tool for your listings. This is the communication from your sellers to prospective buyers. I'm going to incentivize you to buy my house. These concessions, they're going to go from the seller to the buyer. They can be used to cover the buyer's closing cost. The sellers may know, hey, I got eccentric taste. I love my turquoise walls, but I also understand a lot of buyers won't, so I'm going to give them a paint allowance. I'm going to give them a repair allowance. Concessions is going to be a big bucket, and that goes to the buyer to use for whatever they want to. Now, within that concessions, the buyer broker fee can be a part of it, but it's completely up to the buyer how they want to use this money from the sellers. So a couple things you need to keep in mind as agents, especially as buyer's agents. When you're looking at listings and you see, oh, this house is offering $30,000 in concessions, says it right here on the MLS. That amount, it is not binding and is not guaranteed. So you're still going to want to negotiate this like you've always done with the listing agent. Request it for your buyers in your purchase and sell agreement. Now that's all outside of RealTracs, how you want to negotiate it with your buyers and sellers. We just now have a field on RealTracs that says, hey, we are offering this amount. But a lot of people were already saying that. They were just saying it in the remarks. Now there's a field for it. So now we know what concessions is. We're already comfortable with it. We're just going to put it under the concessions title. It's a marketing tool, communication from the sellers to the buyers. It does go to the buyers. Now they can use it for however they want. Now, to protect you guys as agents, there's a second piece to this NAR settlement. And the second piece of that is, as buyer's agents, you're going to have to get a buyer agreement signed prior to showing properties to your buyers. And that's going to be prior, whether you show them in person or even a virtual tour. And all that buyer agreement states is, hey, for me to show you this house, you owe me $5. For the services that I'm going to provide you, this is what you owe me. That's all that buyer's agreement's going to do. It's going to spell out how you're going to get paid. Now, let's kind of put this in a real life scenario. You get this buyer agreement signed. You start showing your buyers some properties. They fall in love with the house. You guys negotiate concessions with the seller. You guys agree on an amount. You hit the closing table. That concession amount goes to the buyer. Now, the buyer, they can say, okay, I'm going to use this money, this concessions amount, and I'm going to use it to pay my buyer broker fee, that fee that I agreed upon with my agent. Or they may say, you know what, I may want to put an awesome pool in the backyard. It's completely up to them, the buyers, how they use this concessions. But for your protection, you have a buyer agreement signed. No matter what money, what funds you pull from, this is what you owe me for my services for this transaction. Now, what we're going to do in RealTracs, and we're going to help you out here, and we're going to kind of educate you along the way. When you go to schedule a showing using the RealTracs showing service, you guys all know what that looks like, how to schedule it. We're going to put like a little checkbox, a little toggle, and it's going to say, hey, do you have your buyer agreement signed? We like to call that a little speed bump. Now, you can still proceed to schedule your showing even if you haven't that agreement signed, but it's for your best interest to go ahead, have that conversation with your buyer and get that buyer agreement signed. How am I going to get paid? What am I going to owe? And then that's a great time as a buyer's agent, you can talk to them about the concessions. Sellers will be offering you, they may be offering you a bucket of money. You can use that money to pay my fee, or you can use it to pay your closing costs. So that's going to be just a conversation you're going to need to be having with your buyers and getting that buyer agreement signed prior to showing a home. So now we feel comfortable. What is concessions? What can my buyer use them for? As listing agents, you just got another marketing tool in your disposal. When it comes to seeing that, remember, it's not binding and it's not guaranteed. So you guys as agents are going to want to negotiate that and request it in the purchase and sell agreement. Now, in the purchase and sell agreement, you can specify what those concessions will be used for. Again, that's outside of RealTracs. We're just going to give you the bucket of money, and then you as agents, if you want to, and your buyer wants to go ahead and specify what these will be used for, you can break it down in the purchase and sell agreement. I also recommend, and even like it says right here, talk to your preferred lenders, your mortgage originators. Hey, break this concessions down for me. They would love to. They're like, oh, we love talking about this. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at a listing. When you see this concession amount, it goes to the buyer. It's not guaranteed, it's not binding. So you're going to want to put it in your purchase and sell agreements and negotiate it out there. All right. So now we got a good understanding of what the steps are moving forward, how our business is going to change, how we need to start switching our mindset. The good thing is compensation, it's not being removed again until August 17th. But today, June 18th, we've already got some fields in place here in RealTracs that you guys can start getting comfortable with. So on the RealTracs side of things, these seller concession fields, they came available to you guys. You saw them in RealTracs on June 3rd. So I think that was 2 weeks ago. On June 3rd, nothing automated happened to your listings. So your listings do not look any different. But I want you to go ahead and use these 2 months to start embracing the change to this business and start getting comfortable using these seller concession fields. You can go ahead and start trying out some conversation. What do you like your listings to look like? You've still got 2 months because you got compensation as a backup for right now. You get free time to start practicing and getting comfortable with the changes to our business. So when I'm looking at RealTracs, I'm going to show you guys where you're going to go to look for these seller concessions, as well as what do I need to do as a listing agent to put this advertisement on my listings. So I'm going to come into my listing manager where all of your listings are housed. My listing management. Now, again, nothing has changed on your listings, but if you have listings in the system right now, let's get comfortable. Let's start applying some of these new fields that we have. So if you want to do this, you're going to want to edit your listings. So I'm going to come into my listing manager and I'm just going to come in here to edit one of my listings. Now, the seller concessions fields where they live within the listing input section is going to be under listing details. So listing details over on the left-hand side. If I pop into that, this is where, because again, it kind of goes into the details of the listing where the seller concessions fields are going to live. So now that I'm in the listing details section, let's take our eyes. You see the list price up at the top. None of that's changed. The subtype, list price, it's all the same. Right under the list price is where it's going to say advertise an offer of seller concessions on listing report. So this is the new optional field that you guys can now do as listing agents. Again, this is optional. It's completely up to you. The way it is right now, the toggle is turned off. So we won't have anything on your listing about you advertising seller concessions. However, if you want to go ahead and let it be known, hey, we're open for business here. We are open to negotiate these concessions. This toggle here, click on it, and it's going to turn blue. And that means I have turned on this field that says advertise an offer of seller concessions, and it's going to go on the MLS report. So that's one field you have. I can turn on this toggle, let them know we're going to negotiate. If you want to take it a step further in that, you can go ahead and say what concession amount you're offering. And that's the field right beside that. So it says seller concessions amount. This is a completely optional. Just because you turn on the toggle doesn't mean you have to say a specified amount. However, if you want to go ahead and put it out there, type in whatever amount your sellers have agreed to offer as concessions. Now, keep in mind, it's not binding, it's not guaranteed. You can negotiate this further with your buyer's agent. All right, and that's all there is to it. We're not going to add anything crazy to the listing input process. It's just two optional fields. Yes, I want to go ahead and advertise seller concessions. I can turn on that toggle. And I want to be very specific, and I'm going to go ahead and tell them the amount. So now that we know where we can put in these fields, let's now switch it to how does it look like as a buyer's agent? Where am I going to look for these concession fields? So I'm just going to come down here, preview listing, so you can see what I've done. So here we have a listing where they've put right under the list price at the top. So remember, guys, this is a marketing tool for you. So we put it right at the top, right under the list price, seller concessions offered. This is what it looks like when the listing agent turned on that toggle, but they didn't put an amount. But you guys know, like, okay, I at least know they're willing to negotiate. We can talk about this further. Now, I know concessions, the verbiage, feel a little new to us, even though we've been doing it for some time. But again, we want to get comfortable with this. Right beside where it says seller concessions offered, you see this informational eye. Don't ever hesitate if you see that informational eye, click on it. We're going to just help further educate you and help you feel comfortable. We're going to remind you as agents, hey, what is these seller concessions? What can they use for? They can be used for closing costs, repairs, buyer broker fees, any expenses the buyer may have. Just keep in mind, as buyer's agents, when I look at this listing, it doesn't mean I'm going to make $30,000. This money goes to the buyer, and it's up to them how they divvy it up. Now, we know concessions. This is a new field for you guys. This is the new way to move forward in our business. This seller concession field that you see here, it is a public field. So that means it is going to be visible on the realtracks.com public site. The good thing about it is when the general public, your buyers, are searching on the RealTracs site and they run across these listings that say seller concessions offered, this informational eye, it's not just for you. It's going to be on their side too. So we're not just helping you guys out as agents. We're educating the general public. What are these seller concessions? What does it mean they're offering? What is that? So this is also on the public site too, to help educate the public on it. Now, as I just mentioned, it is a public field. But right now, it's only going to be seen on the realtracks.com public site. It's not going to be seen on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com. They don't even have a way to pull it because they don't have a concessions field. This is still a pretty new thing in our business. So right now, they don't even have a field to display it. So it's just going to be on the public side on realtracks.com. And of course, you guys as agents are going to see it on the listing. Now, this is a good preview of what it's going to look like when that listing agent's telling you we're open for business, seller concessions are going to be offered. Now I want to show you guys an actual listing that shows if that listing agent went ahead and put in an amount. So it's still the same place, again, right under the list price, but now it's going to say that amount. So 20,000 seller concessions offered. Okay, right up at the top where it's offered. Now, if you happen to forget at the top, At the bottom of the listing reports down here in contract info, it will also have that seller concessions offered in this section of the listing report too. But of course, it's easy just to look at right at the top. So that's why it is there. But if you forget to see it, it's going to be at the bottom in the contract info. All right. So we know now as listing agents how we can put it in our listings. I want you all to go into your listings, and for your future listings, start utilizing these fields, how you want to start incorporating them in your business. Now we know as buyer's agents, when we're looking at listings, where to look, but always keep in mind, it's not guaranteed, it's not binding, it's just we're offering it, but we can always negotiate it more. Now we know how to do it, how to look at it. Let's talk about when we have to close out a listing. Now, nothing about this has changed too much. So I'm going to come into my listing manager. I'm going to go down to one of my listings that's already under contract. So how we change status, listing manager, 3 dots. All of this is the exact same thing. First option, change status. So I'm going to close out my listing, come up to status, pick closed. Once I fill out the sales price, there is a field that says total seller concessions paid. 2 weeks ago, this said total seller paid closing cost. It's the exact same. All we've done is change the verbiage to reflect total seller concessions paid. Now, there is one plus to this. With this seller concessions paid, if you went ahead as a listing agent and put on your listings the amount that you were offering, we did go ahead and auto-populate that into the seller concession page field right here. So that's why you already see 2,500. I didn't have to type it in. We already auto-populated it. Now, of course, that number may have changed. So just because we filled it out, you can come in here and type any amount. Now, if you didn't have it on your listing, a certain amount, this field will be blank and you can just come in here and fill it out. So again, as listing agents, we haven't added any crazy extra steps. It's not going to take up any different amount of time. There's just some new fields available. You've always dealt with concessions. You've always been negotiating. Now we've just given you an actual field to make it very easy. And it saves you remarks. So now you can talk even more about your amazing listing. You don't have to waste characters on it. All right, y'all, that's as simple as it's going to be. You have 2 months to get comfortable with this. So it just has just a quick recap. Remember, all compensation is going to be removed from the MLS on August 17th. The fields, any remarks, don't be skirting around the rules. We're going to be watching you. This is very serious. It's from the DOJ. Any communication about compensation in the MLS will be gone. Now, outside the MLS, they don't have any restrictions on that, but that's outside of RealTracs. Inside of RealTracs, no compensation August 17th. We've already released the concessions offered field, so you got 2 months, get comfortable with it. But remember, concessions, it is not compensation, it's not taking its place. Concessions is like a big old advertisement, a marketing tool from your sellers to buyers, a good incentive. Hey, if you buy this house, we're offering you this. You got to communicate it, request it in the purchase and sale agreement, negotiate it there. And it's up to your buyers how they divvy up that concessions. We're just going to need to be having some conversations with both our buyers and our sellers, what this concessions is, how they can use it. And of course, y'all, get those buyer agreements signed that states up front, how am I going to get paid for my services? All right. Now, that's all I got. So I'm going to check the questions. I've had some friends from RealTracs here that's been watching too. Make sure we don't have any other chats. If you have any other questions, pop them in because we're going to be going over them right now. Okay. Let's see. All right, let me get to you. I love everybody's emails, but it's taking me a second to actually get to some of the questions here. Okay, Miss April says, I know this is a mute point, but how does this prevent steering? I don't steer, of course. But if someone wanted to, they could just steer buyers to listings that have seller concessions offered. Well, that's a conversation you're going to have with your buyers. They may have to only look at listings that have concessions offered. They may only want to. So it's just going to be up to you guys. And it's truly concessions, it's up to the buyers, their amount of money. Do not think when you look at listings, I'm going to walk away with $30,000. The concessions, it goes to the buyers and it's up to them. So it's completely, and there may be buyers that tell you, hey, I only want to look at them. I need that help. And that's up to them. It's going to be completely up to the buyers in this scenario. All right, Miss Diane, will the compensation agreement still be used, or is compensation written into the PSA? You know what, Miss Diane, the Tennessee Realtors forms, they are dealing with kind of revising some of your forms. I'm not 100% positive how they want you to walk forward with that, because that is the form side of things. They have said on July 19th is when they're going to release their new revised forms. And I would say at that point, that's when you'll be able to kind of know, what do I need to do with compensation? Is there going to be a specific form? And again, your broker, once we get all the forms in place, they'll be able to tell you how they want you to handle that as well. All right, Miss April, can we now change the commissions to concessions field, or must we wait until August 17th? Absolutely, Miss April, you can go ahead and start using these concession fields right now. I highly recommend it. Go ahead and get comfortable with these fields. Start having conversations with your sellers, because nothing has changed as of yet. Now on August 17th, commission's gone, compensation is gone. But if you start it now, you'll feel more comfortable when it's legal and it goes into play. Okay, Mr. West, what is the thought process if we offer concessions and they are different for full price offers? Or let me see, I got a place, just lost it, just moved. They are full price offers, i.e. one with an agent and one without, is not violating fair housing. What is the thought process if we offer concessions and different price offers? So it's going to be, if that's just a conversation you're going to want to have with your sellers. You know, if they offer a larger amount of concessions than what we originally said, do we want to alter the price of the home? That's just, again, it's going to be up to you talking it out with your sellers. You want to make sure you're following fair housing, talk to your broker, make sure they're comfortable too, because your brokers, they may have a way they want you to kind of move forward with the concession fields. We're just here to tell you, hey, these fields are available. This is how you use them. Again, if you want this recording, put your email in the chat box and we'll get this email out to you with this recording. We're going to have some help for you guys. We already have a Help Center article. If you hover over help, go into the RealTracs Help Center. In the concessions field, we already have a video and a step-by-step how this goes over this process. Use this to your advantage. If you even want to take a piece of this and put in your listing presentations or talking to your buyers, help them understand what these concession fields are, absolutely up to you. If I got any brokers, if you want office training, reach out to your customer happiness rep. If you're not sure who it is, put it in the comments and I'll make sure your customer happiness rep gets out to you. We can schedule an office visit to go over this with your office as a whole. All right, my friends, it was great having you guys. I'm going to leave you with one piece of information. I know business is changing. We're feeling nervous, but I promise you guys, you've got this. Right here on the screen, this is my digital business card. This is going to have my phone number as well as my email. Reach out to me if you have any questions, any of these regarding changes in RealTracs. Happy to walk you through it. We're going to make it, guys. I promise you, this is a great industry to be in. We're just doing some changes and moving forward with a new way of business. All right, my friends, if there's no further questions, you guys are free to go. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day. Talk to y'all later. All right. If y'all don't have any further questions, you guys are free to go. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day.